On March 5, 2025, the White House announced a one-month exemption from the 25% tariffs imposed on automobile imports from Canada and Mexico. This decision aims to prevent economic disadvantages for U.S. automakers and was well received by the auto industry, leading to a significant rise in the stock prices of companies like General Motors, Ford, and Stellantis. The exemption applies to vehicles that meet the criteria established by the United States-Mexico-Canada Agreement, USMCA, allowing automakers time to adjust operations. The decision to delay the tariffs followed intense negotiations and lobbying efforts from the automotive industry, which raised concerns over increased manufacturing costs and potential disruptions to North American supply chains. While the temporary exemption provides relief to the sector, uncertainties remain about long-term trade policies and their economic impact. This measure comes amid broader trade tensions between the United States, Canada, and Mexico, with all parties seeking diplomatic solutions to mitigate the economic consequences of these tariff policies. In the ever-evolving landscape of international trade, a new chapter has unfolded between Canada and the United States, as both nations grapple with a series of tariff announcements that could reshape their economic relationship. With a storied history of trade ties, recent developments have put these connections to the test. At the heart of this trade drama are tariffs on Canadian softwood lumber, a move that has raised eyebrows on both sides of the border. The U.S. Trade Representative, USTR, recently declared tariffs reaching up to 18% on imports of this essential commodity, citing unfair subsidies provided by the Canadian government. This decision, highlighted by major news outlets like CBC News, reignited a long-standing dispute and prompted a robust response from Canadian officials who vowed to defend their lumber industry against what they describe as unfair trade practices. Tariffs harm both economies and disrupt the flow of trade that has benefited workers and families on both sides, Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau stated in a recent press conference. This sentiment, echoed by the Globe and Mail, underscores the complexities of navigating trade policies that not only affect industry, but also the livelihoods of countless individuals reliant on these sectors. As economic tension mounts, the stakes are high. Experts warn, as reported by CNN and Financial Times, that these tariffs could drive up the cost of housing in the U.S., potentially affecting homebuyers and construction sectors. In response, Canada is considering its options, and whispers of retaliatory measures loom in the air, stirring concerns of escalation in trade hostilities that neither side truly wants. However, amidst the uncertainty, there remains hope for diplomatic resolution. For anyone following this story, keeping an eye on updates from the U.S. Department of Commerce, along with comprehensive coverage from trusted sources like Reuters and Bloomberg, will provide insights into how this story unfolds. As Canada and the U.S. navigate these turbulent waters of trade, one thing is clear. The relationship between these two countries is more than just economic. It's a shared history, a bond of cooperation, and a mutual commitment to prosperity that transcends borders. Canada is not celebrating the one-month exemption from U.S. auto tariffs, despite the fact that cars are the country's second-largest export to the United States, according to data from the U.S. Commerce Department. Ontario Premier Doug Ford stated that both he and Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau firmly oppose any tariffs on Canadian goods. "We are in full agreement, zero tariffs, and we are not going to back down," Ford told reporters during a briefing on Wednesday. Trump's decision to grant the temporary exemption comes as he prepares to introduce a broader set of reciprocal tariffs worldwide, scheduled for announcement on April 2nd. Unlike the tariffs imposed on Canadian and Mexican goods, Trump does not intend to offer any exemptions for these new reciprocal tariffs, White House Trade Advisor Leavitt told reporters. These upcoming tariffs could be imposed in addition to the existing 25% duties on other Canadian and Mexican imports. For example, in a Fox News interview last week, U.S. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick referenced Canada's 5% national sales tax, while discussing potential reciprocal tariffs that Trump may be considering.
And we don't want to see you hurt either. But your government has chosen to do this to you.
The days of cars being 100% made in America are long gone. For decades, the North American auto industry has functioned as a seamless, cross-border machine, driven by free trade agreements signed by multiple U.S. presidents, including Donald Trump himself. This deep integration means that car parts, and even fully assembled vehicles, routinely cross borders multiple times before they land on an American dealership lot. Now, U.S. automakers are sounding the alarm. Tariffs on cars and auto parts from Canada and Mexico wouldn't just hurt their neighbors. It would put American-built cars at a serious disadvantage. That's because even vehicles assembled in U.S. factories rely heavily on Canadian and Mexican components. Slapping tariffs on those parts would add thousands of dollars to the cost of each car. Meanwhile, cars imported from Europe and Asia, many of which contain far fewer North American parts, would be exempt from these extra costs, creating an uneven playing field. It's a massive gift to foreign automakers, Ford CEO Jim Farley warned investors last month. Companies from Japan, South Korea, and Europe bring in 1.5 to 2 million cars to the U.S. that wouldn't face these Mexican and Canadian tariffs. This would be one of the biggest windfalls for them, ever. The numbers tell the story. Canada and Mexico are powerhouses in auto manufacturing. Canada produced 1.3 million vehicles last year, according to S&P Global Mobility. Mexico manufactured 4 million vehicles, with 70% of them sold to American buyers. The U.S. produced 10.2 million vehicles, but even those relied on parts from across the border. The scale of this trade is staggering. Last year alone, the U.S. imported $217 billion worth of passenger vehicles, with Mexico as the top supplier. Canada and Mexico exported a combined $47 billion in auto parts to the U.S. Passenger cars were Mexico's #1 export to the U.S., $50 billion, while for Canada, only crude oil ranked higher, $28 billion in car exports. The cost of tariffs: higher prices for everyone. Without an auto exemption, Trump's proposed 25% tariff on Mexican and Canadian imports could raise car prices by anywhere from $3,500 to $12,000, according to an analysis by the Michigan-based Anderson Research Group. That means more expensive cars for consumers, higher costs for automakers, and a massive competitive advantage for foreign manufacturers. If the goal is to strengthen American auto manufacturing, industry experts argue, these tariffs might do the exact opposite.
And we don't want to see you hurt either. But your government has chosen to do this to you.